Good morning, everybody. It's been a pleasure sitting here since Monday, enjoying all the speeches so far. And now I find myself on the other side of the divide. Like the introduction said, I'm going to speak on culture and diplomacy as a tool for economic growth and integration. And in doing this, I'm going to talk from a perspective of Africa, which is different from what you saw in the film flicks yesterday. Africa had moved beyond the age of the Tarzan story, great infrastructural development, strong governance, and steady democratic practice. So at the moment, the paper is divided into 7 segments. I have the introduction, and here I've shown Africa to consist of people of about 1.3 billion. That is as at the studies of 2011. And it has a landmass as stated there. According to the 2013 edition of the world's data sheet, Africa accounts for about 15% of the world's human population, so you could see that it's actually a huge continent, and I think it's bigger, almost about 4 or 5 times the size of Europe. Now, in doing this, I have to narrow my compass down to the Yoruba tribe where I come from, and I'll have to look at the trade practice of the Yorubas pre-colonial, during colonial era, and post-colonial era. Now, definition of terms, I don't need to go through this again. We've had this since Monday. The Yorubas are a people that presently live in southwest Nigeria and the southern part of Benin Republic. It has a population of 35 million people, and it is one of the largest ethnic groups in Africa. It's 21% population of the entire country known as Nigeria, and they speak a common language, the Yorubas. Now, our culture is predominantly reflected in the way we dress. If not for the harsh weather today, I would have come in my typical Yoruba dress. It's also reflected in our music, our dance, and our literature, which is basically oral. And I'm sure so many of us here would have heard of Professor Wole Soyinka as a writer. He won the Nobel in the 90s. He's a classical example of a Yoruba man speaking and writing from the perspective of a Yoruba man. Now, our diplomacy usually centered around those who live around us. We share border with the Bogu in the Benin Republic, the Nupe and Nebira in central Nigeria, and the Edo and these Ishans. Now, these are also sub-tribes within the country known as Nigeria. And because of this relationship, through either marriage, economy, commerce, we have been able to establish a form of contact before the advent of colonialism with this group. And you see that this influence is more predominant in the way these tribes speak, because the influence of the Yoruba language had dropped off considerably on their language as well. And they had borrowed a part of the Yoruba lexicon in their own language. Now, this diplomatic relationship with these sub-ethnic groups has also led to the assimilation of some of Yoruba cultures. Today, you see an Ishekiri man dressing like a Yoruba man. Today, you see a Nupe man dressing like a Yoruba man. And the shocking part of it is that the Creole, who are in present-day Sierra Leone, also dressed like a Yoruba man. I've been to a forum in Brazil where I saw the descendants of, I don't want to use the word slave, but the descendants of a migrant in Brazil speaking some aspects of Yoruba. And when I asked him, he told me that his forefathers actually came from the Yoruba land, though he was not certain which aspect of Yoruba land. And their practices, their culture, their religion is similar to ours. They had the Ifa traditional worship, As a matter of fact, it was an Obatala festival they were doing, and they invited some of us. So this has also gone beyond the African continent into the Latin America as well. Now, our system of government is very simple. It's centered around Obas and Bales. An Oba is a king. Bales are subheads. A king will have several chiefs, and those chiefs will be responsible for different tasks within the society. This was the way we had organized ourselves before the colonial masters came, and it was effective in the sense that, yes, each king is supposed to have dominion over his territory, just like you have the King of Madrid, just as you have the Queen Elizabeth in UK, and you are supposed to know your subjects, know your territory very well, and use those chiefs under you to administer those territories. Also, we have the Bales. The Bales are subheads. They are unit heads, because each town or city has several villages underneath where those Bales are expected to rule. It's a form of government that devolves from bottom up. The Bales also have their chiefs, who are respective heads of their families, and who reports to the Bales, the subunit, and the Bale also reports to the king. Now, let me go quickly to the colonial era. When the colonial masters came, all this system of government were completely abolished. In the Francophone areas, they ruled through indirect rule. In the Anglophone areas, they administered through indirect rule. In the Francophone areas, it's even worse. They completely annihilated the culture of those people within that area. And they made them to assume French nationality, which was a process that is called assimilation. And in this, everything previously were taken away, and all those being colonized were made to look as French citizens. Now, the pinnacle of this was the Berlin Conference of 1885, where Africa was partitioned. And through that process, several tribes, several groups, several ethnic groups were sent into very wrong direction. And I'll give an example. I started the Yorubas initially. The Yorubas used to occupy what we have as the present-day southwest Nigeria. But due to the partitioning, some of them were taken to Benin Republic and some were taken to Sierra Leone. The partitioning just created an artificial borderline for everyone within that sub-region. And during this process, certainly, there was very little trade, there was very little commerce within those groups, and very little activity. The masters were rather taking the raw products from each territory and transporting it to Europe, and then bringing it back to the territory, killing internal trade, killing internal migration, killing and stopping movements of people and goods and personnel. Now, post-colonial. During colonialism, like I said, the Yorubas, like the others, were merged into the several groups. And an example of this is the geographical entity we call Nigeria now. The Yorubas were merged with others from the north, known as the Hausas and the Igbos, and then we formed a government. Now, it took quite a while for all the countries to realize that we could trade with each other. Now, I use the Yorubas as an example. From my state, where I come from, to Benin Republic, it's just a 5 minutes walk across the border. But it took us almost 15 to 20 years post-independence to realize that I can cross from Ogun State to Benin Republic. And there were various studies, there were various advocacy, and in 1976, the organization known as the ECOWAS was established. ECOWAS simply means Economic Community of West African States. It actually started as the Economic Commission for West African States. But later it was upgraded to a community, just in the form of EU. And the main essence of this is to create an economic bloc where those of us in Nigeria, can transact with Ghanaians. Those of them in Ghana can transact with those in Liberia without necessarily having to either come to UK or go to France. About 22, 23 years back, our telecommunication system was actually routed through France. Which means if I have to call somebody in Gabon or Gambia, the call will first had to be routed through Paris before they send it to Gambia. And it created a lot of difficulties. It was a very big challenge. So the essence of this ECOWAS is just to say, okay, let us see how we can relate, how we can talk, how we can move. Let us leave what the colonial masters did behind us, and then we project forward. Now, initially they started with 5 members, but as at the moment, there are 16 countries in ECOWAS. ECOWAS member states, our combined GDP is 394.5. Meanwhile, the total land mass is 5,112 square meters. And you will see that this is considerably poor. Because while doing the research on this paper, I discovered that Google alone has a GDP return of about $400 billion annually. Now, for a nation, for a group, this is very poor. Now, but the greatest thing, or the biggest hope some of us have, is that with the consistent advocacy at this level, we may be able to attain a level where EU is presently. This is not being unmindful of the fact that EU has started for over 60 years, but you have not reached there. Now, I've stated the aim of ECOWAS. Now, under economic integration, what we are trying to do is to say, okay, let us remove these boundaries, let us remove these borders, so that people can move freely. Now, what we have been able to achieve in that regard is that by 2025, we are looking at having our own Schengen, which is termed ECO. By 2029, we're looking at having our own currency, which is also termed ECO. And we are also, at the moment, they've started issuing a single passport for whoever is interested as an ECOWAS passport. So at this moment, when we go on like that, I think in the next 10, 15 years, we should be able to match Europe at that level. Now, we've had challenges. Basically, they are related to governance and leadership. We're already going through that. Several of the countries are already democratizing. Nigeria is about 14 years democratic rule. Ghana is about 20. Several others like that. But the hope there is that we will achieve what EU has been able to achieve. Now, I want to quickly go to the lessons we have learned from the EU. And this is a study I took away from Russia last year. Because we realized that you had done so much work in the areas of migration, but you still have a problem with a common tariff. Now, we have decided that, okay, we've sorted this migration issue, but how do we sort out this tariff issue? And that is where I'm working with the West African Institute of Taxation, where we're looking at a common tariff across border, so that we will look at how to harmonize our tax. Specific areas of tax harmonization, I've already stated it, so that we'll look at how to harmonize our tax. And at the end, probably, like I said, in another 15 years, we'll be able to achieve a common market, we'll be able to achieve free movement of goods and personnel, and we may be able to have bigger economy that we can also stand toe-to-toe with Europe and say, come and invest with us, come and trade with us, come and partner with us, don't just dole out aid to us. Thank you.